Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have become reliant than ever on delivery service providers. In a report published by Grab and Euromonitor International, food delivery expenditure in the Philippines alone contributed an estimated $1.1 billion. Such is the importance of delivery service providers that in fact, aside from doctors, nurses, and other medical professionals, delivery riders, especially of food, have been considered frontliners, heroes we ought to salute. However, the everyday realities of being a rider either for Grab, Panda, Lalamove, Angkas, Joyride, or Toktok reveal that they are actually susceptible not only to natural hazards in highways when they're either under the heat of the sun or when it's raining heavily, but also to being maliciously taken advantage of in a phenomenon called fake booking. I am Kenneth dela Vega, and in this video, I will be presenting a legislative proposal seeking to protect individuals engaging in delivery services. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the Anti-Fake Booking Act.
Kaawa-awang food delivery rider na naman ang nabiktima ng peking booking.
Biktima pala sila ng fake booking.
Na-fake booking kasi ako eh.
To a food delivery rider who fell victim to a fake booking in Pasig City.
Ang fake bookings
Food delivery rider who became a victim of fake booking.
na nabiktima ng fake booking nito lang linggo.
Ay biktima lamang ng fake booking.
Mabiktima ng fake booking. Mga rider pala na biktima ng fake booking.
Kapwa nila rider na nabiktima ng fake booking.
Biktima ng mga fake booker.
Kung sino man po yung tao, nagpakahalimaw siya.
I don't think there's any doubt in our mind at this point that this is a real-world problem experienced on a daily basis. But perhaps the most important question we have to face is, why should we care? Now, throughout this video, I would like you to remember that these drivers have families too. Some of us in this class might even have somebody near and dear to us who work as a delivery rider. Just imagine how many people have been able to earn money through driving, especially at the height of the pandemic. This is why it matters. Fortunately, some of our lawmakers or perhaps their congressional staff were paying attention. In the previous Congress, a House and a Senate bill have been filed to address this problem. Unfortunately, the 18th Congress ended with the bill never becoming a law of the land. Now, since the bills were filed in 2020, many things have changed. That is why, while it is true that there have been bills filed before on this subject, this proposal I'm presenting to you today is brand new and is an original application to the old and new problems. Now, I realize this bill is probably going to be long, but for this video, I'll discuss its 5 main features. First feature, we are criminalizing the practice of fake booking, such as the use of another person's personal information or address or the placing of hoax orders. And we are imposing a penalty of arresto mayor or imprisonment of up to 6 months and a fine of 100,000 pesos on top of requiring the suspect to reimburse. Now, apparently, the original intent of legislators was to push it to 6 years, maybe even 12 years. But in a letter, the Department of Trade and Industry said that it is the opinion of the department that Prisión Mayor and Prisión Correccional, which in its entirety cover maximum of 12 and 6 years respectively, may be too severe. Now, to be fair, in this law there will be exceptions such as when the order is already an hour late due to the fault or negligence of the driver, or when a customer reimburses the cost as a precondition for the cancellation of order. But we are providing jail time and penalties in the hope of deterring criminals from doing this, especially now that it is no longer just a prank, but is actually an organized crime. While we often hear the case of Grab Food and Panda fake booking, there's actually a brand new modus operandi, wherein the drivers usually of Lalamove or Joyride or even of Angkas are asked to make paluwal and deliver a product with the expectation that they will be paid once delivered, only to realize that nobody will pick it up, and that the product they're delivering is just something worthless.
Pero hindi lang mga Pinoy ang sangkot sa ganitong kalakaran.
This is organized and premeditated crime. In some instances, the fake booking transactions are almost worth hundreds of thousands. Now, this leads us now to the second feature of our proposal that is brand new. We will extend this law to delivery service riders who deliver products generally and not just food, grocery, and pharmaceutical products. Again, if you will go on Facebook, there are all sorts of modus operandi which victimizes delivery riders of all kinds. In this new version, we will cover all of them. The third feature of this bill is we will require delivery service providers like Grab and Food Panda to establish reimbursement scheme that would be consistent to DTI guidelines. It is true that Grab, Food, and Food Panda, for example, have reimbursement schemes, but according to many riders, they're full of problems. First, their reimbursement request gets denied. Second, they're very inconvenient. Ang layo-layo, pupunta ka pa sa Makati, pipila ka pa. Or in some cases, they will force you to throw away the food in the garbage bin. Now, as this is a congressional legislation, we're going to let the DTI and other executive agencies come up with rules and guidelines, such as, for example, regarding food hubs. Now, another thing new with this proposal is our fourth feature. We will facilitate the integration of the SIM card registration law to really go after those creating fake accounts and maliciously scamming our delivery riders by the thousands. Now, while the law itself may be controversial, there is no denying that it could be useful in this very scenario. Our last main feature is again something that wasn't in the original bill. We will insert a summary judgment provision in the law which will speed up the process of prosecuting the criminals and soliciting from them reimbursement. The problem with current laws is that they take too long that riders would rather just move on sometimes even without reimbursement. By removing barriers for the wheels of justice to work speedily and efficiently, we hope not to add any inconvenience to the livelihood of our riders. Now, we recognize possible challenges or hurdles in the passing of this bill. For instance, it may be that delivery companies would oppose strict account verification since they might lose some customers who would then be required through this law to submit proof of identity or proof of address. In fact, if you think about it, Grab could actually just incentivize cashless payment instead of cash on delivery so that the riders will not at all be scammed altogether. But of course, that might bar customers who do not have a credit card or GCash from using their service. However, upon performing a cost-benefit analysis of this bill, the benefits to all parties far outweigh the costs. Not knowing whether or not a customer is actually legitimate or is a scammer is a market failure that justifies government intervention. Now, just to summarize, the Anti-Fake Booking Act is a timely proposal that is gravely needed here in the Philippines. Let's finally address the problem that befalls our hardworking delivery riders and their families. And at the same time, let's ensure that consumers like you and me will not fall victim to having our names or addresses used for fake deliveries. In this measure, we have inserted many brand new features to solve not only the old problems but also to respond to the new modus operandi of scammers. I am perfectly confident that this proposal is very feasible, as this does not need a regime change, a charter change, or a revolution. And in fact, we are expecting tremendous support for this measure. This has been Kenneth John Ken de la Vega, at sa pagpasa ng batas laban sa fake booking, together, yes we can.